So now here we read about the welding technology. So in a large manufacturing subject, the welding technology, it is a one small process. So if I talk about the welding, so welding is basically the one type of manufacturing process. But the main thing is that the welding is actually it's not a primary manufacturing process, it is a secondary manufacturing process. So now the what is the primary manufacturing? It is basically the welding is basically the secondary manufacturing process. The primary manufacturing process is known as a casting. So we came in a later in a casting we talk in a detail. Now the welding. So the type of welding. So here we have the fusion welding process and the solid state welding process. So the fusion welding process and the solid state welding process. So what is the fusion and what is the solid? And then the classification of the fusion and the solid state welding process. Now we talk about the fusion welding process. So what is the fusion welding process? The fusion welding process, what we do, we basically melted the base metal. We have a base metal and we liquidified the base metal. And after liquidified the base metal, the solid the joining is performed. All right. So this is what actually happened. The fusion based welding process. So in a fusion welding process, the base metal will be the liquidified. After the solidification of that particular conjunction, the welding is performed. In a fusion welding process, we basically use the one very important thing that is known as an electrode. It's known as an electrode. So what is the electrode? So what is the electrode? Electrode is a particular the substance by which we generate the arc, and after producing the arc, the base metal will be liquidified, and then the joining will be the performed. So in the electrode, we have the material of the electrode. So material of the electrode, it is very important. So what is the electrode material? So it is basically, so the main purpose of the electrode is basically, as I told you earlier, the formation of the arc. So now the electrode material, we can say the same material of the base metal. And so this is one possibility, and second possibility is that we use a particular electrode which is basically the different from the base metal. So these are the two possibility. So if the first possibility, if I talk about the first, if the electrode material and the base metal material both are the same, so that electrode basically called consumable electrode. So that is basically called the consumable electrode. Now if the base material and electrode material both are the different, so then that electrode we say the non-consumable electrode. So non-consumable electrode. All right. So now the difference, what is the difference between the consumable electrode and a non-consumable electrode? We look on that. So during welding, the consumable electrode, it getting consumed, and non-consumable electrode during welding, it is not consumed, but rather than it consumed, it basically produce the arc. Due to the arc, the base metal will be liquidified, or conjunction will be liquidified. So this is. So if I talk about the consumable electrode material, then the consumable electrode material is the same material of the base metal. So the base metal material and the electrode material both are the same. And non-consumable electrode, the electrode material and the base metal, actually the both are the different to each other. So as it is getting consumed during welding, so we can say it is not suitable for the mass production, but limited volume production, we can use the consumable electrode. So if I talk about the application of the consumable electrode, so we can say the consumable electrode used in a particular the MIG and the non-consumable MIG welding. All right. And that is MIG welding, the metal inert gas welding process. We came into this later. Now in the non-consumable oil electrode, we basically use like the TIG welding, plasma arc welding. So these are the TIG welding, tungsten inert gas welding, plasma arc welding. So these are the application. So in a consumable electrode is actually, it is very important. The consumable electrode, actually what actually happened in a consumable, we do not provide the external filler material. The electrode material itself act as a filler material. and flux, the electrode is coated the flux itself, and into the non-consumer electrode. Here we actually the flux and the filler metal we use the separately. Alright, so this is basically known as the consumer electrode. The flux and the filler metal we basically use the separately here. So another term we get that is flux, and another one is the filler material. So filler material is basically in a conjunction we basically apply the material which basically get melted and produce the joint. So this is known as a filler material, and the flux coated is electrode we came into the little later. So electrode, we get the electrode material. According to the electrode material, we get consumer electrode and a non-consumer electrode. Now electrode is basically further we classified the flux coated electrode and the normal electrode. The flux coated electrode, we can say the consumer electrode, actually the flux coated electrode. Here the electrode actually further coated, the thick coated we provide the flux material. The function of the flux is that it basically during when it produce the arc, or because of that particular arc, this inner material actually liquidified, and it actually it is actually the base metal, or we can say it is the it is the basically the filler metal. And the flux is basically what actually do the flux, it basically create a slack so into the weld metal pool. This is a weld metal pool, and this flux is deposit a weld metal pool, and when this flux is deposit over here, so it basically act as a sealing. It provide a sealing so that atmospheric gases does not contaminate the weld metal pool, and because of that the defect, like gaseous defect, are less. So this is the main purpose of the flux. Okay, so in a particular underwater welding, we basically use the thick coated flux we basically use. So this is the flux. Now we came into the polarity. So this is the polarity. What is the polarity? Polarity is basically we can say the how we connect the electrode, the positive terminal or the negative terminal. If we connect the electrode with the positive terminal, so this is basically known as a straight polarity. So electrode positive, so it is known as a straight polarity. And electrode, if we connect the negative terminal, then it is known as a reverse polarity. So this is now the application of the straight polarity and the reverse polarity. So at first I talk the application of the reverse polarity. The reverse polarity application, like the overhead welding, underwater welding, these are the major two domain where we basically use the reverse polarity. So why we perform the reverse polarity over here? So what is the advantage of the reverse polarity? We have a little advantage. That's why we basically use the reverse polarity into the very difficult welding process, like underwater welding. It is very difficult one, and underwater welding it is very difficult one, and overhead welding it is another difficult one. So in that particular difficult domain, we basically use the reverse polarity. So the main advantage of the reverse polarity is that in a reverse polarity, we get the plastically deformed metal, or we can say more precise, in a straight polarity, the weld metal pool, that is the welding area, we get the liquid metal. But the reverse polarity, the weld metal pool or the conjunction, we basically get the plastically deformed metal. Here we get the straight polarity, we get the liquid metal, and the reverse polarity we get the plastically deformed metal. So this is the main advantage. So if we weld underwater overhead welding we perform, so there is a main disadvantage is that the dripping phenomena, the liquid metal started dripping. So this is to overcome this particular problem, the reverse polarity use. And underwater welding, the main thing is that we underwater welding, it is the different phenomena. Actually I talk the detail about underwater welding in a coming videos. So thank you. And next video we discuss on the different type of welding process and their advantage and the disadvantage. So thank you.